Welcome to Meditating with John Vervaeke. So I have an announcement to begin everything with. We will continue the live streaming at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time for the rest of this week, but then we'll have to switch to a weekly schedule because we're going back to work, we're going back to school as part of the Stage 3 reopening. Jason and Amar and I have had several conversations about trying to get our schedules to intersect so that we could do a daily meeting, a daily session, and we just can't make it work. So what we're going to do is we'll finish the rest of this week at the daily sessions at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, and not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. Not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, we will switch to going to weekly Saturday mornings at 10:30 a.m. for an hour. We will go from 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time Saturday morning. Sorry everyone, I know that's a bit of a jar. We just recently came to this conclusion. All of our schedules are just gelling now, and this is what we're going to need to do going forward. I sincerely hope and I encourage people to the Sangha to continue to meet regularly, daily, on the Discord server and do the daily practice. And Saturday will always, therefore, be a Dharma day. And we will have, that's why we're going to do an hour class, and we will switch. We will start by sitting on Saturdays first. We'll sit, and then we'll do the Dharma day, the Dharma lesson, and then we'll take a Q&A. So that's the schedule we're going to switch to. I believe it'll be something like the 13th or something. I'll get the exact date for you tomorrow, but it is not this Saturday. It is the following Saturday. If you're joining us for this first time, you're most welcome. Please know that I think this is the 108th class we've met. All the previous classes have been recorded, both the lessons and the sits. You're most welcome to continue to meet with us. I recommend see the description for this video, and you'll find links to the lessons. Do lesson 1 right away, and then work your way through. Try to do 2 lessons a week. Meet with us on Saturdays for the Dharma days. Meet on the Discord server with the Sangha to do the regular sits. At the end of this session, and the end of every session that we will be meeting, even when we go to the new schedule, there will be a Q&A period. Please limit the questions at that time to anything from the entire ecology of practice, either the Eastern traditions or the Western wisdom traditions. For more general questions, we will still be holding our live streamed general Q&A on YouTube every third Friday of the month at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So yesterday was a large lesson. I'm going to let people sit with it for the week, and then I will review it again on Friday and take some Q&A at that time. Please be patient with us also. We are trying out some new technology so that we can make use of 2 cameras during the lessons, so that we don't have to move the cameras around when we move from the sitting to using the whiteboard. So we're just working out some bugs on that, and Jason and Amar are working furiously behind the scenes. For us, though, we can just sit. So what I'd ask everybody to do is to get themselves in position, set their phones on Do Not Disturb. We will begin together. When I say begin, we will start with some chanting, and then we will go into our silent sit, and then we'll take some questions. And I encourage people, in addition to questions, to sharing comments, edifications, concerns, etc. All right. Begin. One. 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 Om. One. Om. One. Om. One. Begin your silent sit. Slowly come out of your practice, trying as best you can to integrate what you cultivated in your practice with your everyday consciousness, cognition, character, and communitas, perhaps by reciting the 5 promises. We have time for a couple of questions. First one from Mark. Always good to see you, Mark. Excellent time on the Discord server last night, and Mark asked a fantastic question about addiction, and sort of in a 3-stage way. I tried to answer at length as best I can, and I thought it was a very, very powerful exchange between us. Mark asks here, what practices do you think help make the paratelic mode salient? Is this just contemplation, or is it more involved? So the best way to get into the paratelic mode, so Csikszentmihalyi says flow is autotelic, and autotelic is basically synonymous with paratelic. So those practices that get you into the flow state will get you more and more aware of the paratelic mode. In fact, I think the flow state, and remember we talked about the flow state is on a continuum from sort of mild to medium to intense, but all good. I think the flow state is in fact a marker of that mode, and because that is the mode in which we are going through the most developmental change, because that's what the paratelic mode's about. It's about where we play in order to develop, as opposed to the telic mode where we work in order to survive. So I think any of the practices that get you into the flow state, of course they would be contemplative practices, but the movement practices can also get you into that. But many of the things that have been created precisely because they generate the flow state, playing jazz, writing poetry, all of these things. Notice how a lot of these are the arts, and our work-obsessed, workaholic culture that works us to death for nothing other than working so that we can continue to work, to make it possible for other people to work, has, of course, denigrated the arts, because those principles that move us in that way have forgotten, those principles and powers that move us that way have forgotten the being mode, modal confusion, and they have forgotten how important the serious play of art is to remembering sati, the being mode, remembering the paratelic mode, because that is the mode in which human beings most activate and actualize their developmental potential, and thereby most afford their aspirational growth. So I think it's very important that we deepen and extend Mark's question into asking ourselves not only what are the practices, but how can we incorporate more of them into our lives in a more comprehensive and integrated fashion. So, Karima Cynthia Clayton, there's a question. Socrates and Plato taught that knowledge gained in past lives is the basis for education in the present life. What happened that the Epicureans dropped the belief? So it's not clear if Socrates believes that. Socrates in the Apology very clearly states that he has no knowledge of the afterlife, and that therefore he should in no way fear it or hope for it. Plato, of course, is deeply influenced by the Pythagoreans, and I agree with a lot of the research that argues that the Pythagoreans were influenced by shamanism, and shamanism, of course, has the idea of soul flight and reincarnation. The Epicureans drop it because they are not as influenced by Plato. They are more directly influenced by Socrates, and because they also have a much more scientific bent of mind, they didn't think that the psyche, the soul, was immaterial. They thought it was also made up of atoms, a special kind of atom, and therefore, like everything else made of atoms, it would dissipate given enough time. That caused them problems, of course, with respect to the existence and the immortality of the gods. And the Epicureans, they give some of the first arguments in history for what you might call atheism. The argument that's often attributed to Hume, if the gods are all powerful and all good, why is there evil, actually originates with Epicurus. So there was a questioning in the Epicureans of a lot of what you might call the Pythagorean and shamanic aspects that Plato introduced in. Now, Neoplatonism does follow those aspects, and Neoplatonism picks up again the ideas of rebirth, reincarnation, past lives, and such. But that's sort of the historical answer to your question, Karima. Rawad Jonas, slow reading, precious speaking, intentional conversing, ruminatio. I'm wondering if I got the order of practices correctly. No, it goes slow reading and then ruminatio, I believe, precious speaking, and then intentional conversing. So that's how it should be. Let me make sure that's how it should be now. Let me make sure, I'll check my notes that that's what I presented yesterday. Yeah, you do the slow reading, you do the ruminatio, the chanting, then there's the precious speaking, and then you take that into the intentional conversing. Kira Kroger, welcome, Kira. I haven't heard from you in a bit. It's good to hear from you again. Question, I understand the reasoning for avoiding automaticity and authority in the practice we talked about yesterday, but I don't understand the reason for avoiding autobiography. Can you elaborate? Yes, the reason for avoiding autobiography is that people fall into making the practice about extending, reflecting on, getting feedback, getting validation for their autobiography. And so I understand your concern. It's like, well, how do I make it relevant? But what I'm asking you to do is, I think this is the right way of putting it, trust your relevance realization machinery. Your ego, anyone's ego, not just yours in particular, saying, unless you keep spinning my autobiographical web, you won't realize the relevance of things. And of course, that's bullshit. The flow state is overwhelming evidence. The meditative states are overwhelming evidence that your relevance realization machinery, making things relevant, is not going to conk out. In fact, it's probably going to be developed and accentuated when you leave off autobiography. So one of the things that's difficult in all of these practices is to get people to break the monologue of autobiography, because that's what autobiography is. You're talking about yourself and you're largely talking to yourself. You're trying to break, when we all do it, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, we have to break the frame of monologue so that we become genuinely open to dialogue and trust that our relevance realization machinery will continue to work and work, in fact, better in dialogue. And so I know that's something I'm asking you to trust and to try, but what I can say is I have good reason and confidence to believe that if you make this move, you will find it deeply rewarding. Kira Kroger, in my practice, I noticed a deep sadness at the loss of the daily meditation classes. I know, Kira, we we struggled to try. We are all felt very responsible to this, and we've tried many times. Try to find intersections. We were thinking of doing some evening classes. We just can't get it to work, and so I'm hoping that I will still be able to answer a lot of questions, give you some reliable sense of my presence in your lives as a teacher and mentor with the Saturday morning Dharma class. We're kind of switching more to the the synagogue, temple, mosque, church model, where we meet once a week, and it's a longer time, and there's always some Dharma, and so that has worked for people, obviously, in many contexts across many generations, within many religious frameworks. This is not a religious framework, but you understand the analogy I'm making, and so I'm hoping that will continue to work, and I am hoping, and I'm encouraged by the belief that the Discord server can take over the function of homing the weekly Sangha and giving a place where people can still review the lessons. All of the lessons are recorded. People can still meet, they can still review, they can still practice. There's no real reason for the weekly meetings to stop, and I'm going to do my best to try and maintain, perhaps not as extensive, but hopefully a significant presence as teacher and mentor for the Sangha. So I share your sadness. It has been very nourishing and meaningful to me, but this is the best response we've been able to come up with. So remember, the rest of the week is as normal. We are not meeting this Saturday, but the following Saturday we will move to the weekly schedule. So we will not be meeting next week during the weekdays, but we will start next week on the Saturday for an hour, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I want to thank you all for joining, and joining me throughout all of this. Who knows how things unfold? We may be back again in a different way under a lockdown. I hope not. I hope that at least things are progressing quite well in Canada. I don't think things are going to go back to the way they were before COVID. I think that's a false hope. But I do think we're going through yet another transition, and we're trying to work out a new way of being. And so I ask everybody to adapt, and I ask you to trust in the practices that we have shared together and learned together to affording your capacities for transformation and adaptivity as we go through yet another phase together. And we will be going through it together. We're not going away. We're just going to be differently present. So Amar and Jason have been working really hard to get this new technology working. That way, when we switch to the Saturdays and we're doing the Dharma classes, we will be able to cut between cameras and record that for everybody and make that available. We won't be doing the weird moving of the camera and the weird angle, and so that should hopefully make everything work. Please subscribe to the channel to be notified of the next video. Also, please follow me on Twitter for any updates about these streams if you're not opposed to it on principle. Please invite others who might benefit by sharing this series. I think this is a virtuous way of saying this. I'm very proud of this series. I'm very proud of what we have done together. Very proud of it. It's one of the best things I've done in my life, and I thank you all for that tremendously. Please, it's very important now. This is no longer just an addition or an amendment. It's very important that we join the Discord server. That's how the Sangha is going to continue. That's how the practices are going to continue. That's the place where you're going to be able to find a home for philosophical, contemplative companionships. And they're going to be really, I think, a vital way of adding to the vibrancy and the vitality of the Sangha's communitas. So, we'll be continuing to meet at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time for Wednesday and Thursday and Friday of this week. Lastly, please remember, now more than ever, continuity of practice is more important than sheer quantity of practice. Don't hold yourself to the standard of harsh perfectionism. Hold yourself to the standard of virtuous friendship, because there is no enemy worse than your own mind and body. There is no friend, no ally, no true contemplative companion on the path better than your own mind and body. Be lamps unto yourselves and to each other. I'll see you all tomorrow. Take good care, everyone. Are we out?